Natalia Bonner. Welcome back. I'm so happy to be here today and share a few fun designs on this adorable quilt. So this fun quilt is one that my daughter Chesney actually pieced, and it's actually a gift for one of her friends. So once she got done piecing this quilt, I just knew that this was the perfect quilt for a lot of fun custom machine quilting. So today we're going to be focusing on just a few of the strips on this adorable quilt, and we're going to be using my brand new Sway machine quilting rulers to quilt out these fun designs. Now, if you do want to see more of my process machine quilting, a whole bunch more of this cool quilt, make sure you do hop over to our website, pieceandquilt.com. Over there you can enroll in the Piece and Quilt Academy. What is the Piece and Quilt Academy? The Piece and Quilt Academy is this really awesome library of machine quilting videos. When you enroll, you gain instant access to over 100 machine quilting videos. There is some of everything. Really modern, really traditional, free motion quilting, ruler work. I have done some of everything, and we've created these exclusive videos where I share my process of custom machine quilting these beautiful quilts. You can enroll at any time on our website, pieceandquilt.com. To pick up the rulers that I'm going to be using here today, make sure you also hop over to our website, pieceandquilt.com, and you can pick up the Sway rulers. I will also be using my mini 4-in-1 machine quilting ruler, which is also available on our website, pieceandquilt.com. All right, so I'm going to be doing all of my quilting here today on my Gamble 22-inch machine. Because I am doing ruler work, I am going to be stitching in the stitch regulated mode, and I have my stitch length set at 13 stitches per inch. A couple of tips when you are doing machine quilting with rulers. Make sure you have a ruler foot on your machine and also a large flat extended base plate underneath. So whether you're working on a sit down machine or a long arm machine, you do need to make sure that you have both of those. The thread that I'm going to be using here today on my top is so fine. I'm going to be using color number 401, and then on my bobbin I'm using bottom line. The batting that I'm using is 1 layer of the Quilter Stream Poly Deluxe, and even though I'm doing a lot of dense quilting on this quilt, between the Quilter Stream Poly Deluxe batting and that minky that we've used on the backing, this quilt is still going to stay nice and soft. All right, friends, let's hop over to my Gamble quilting machine and let's get stitching. So here is a look at the quilting after I've completed this entire quilt. You can see how I really did have a lot of fun playing around with free motion quilting and of course ruler work on all of those strips. This quilt turned out so dang cute. Of course, I also have to show you the backing because sometimes backing just turns out as awesome as the quilt top. So the first design that we're going to stitch out today is that scallop along the bottom row. For this scallop, I'm not going to be doing any marking because I'm just having fun and playing on this quilt, which I highly encourage you to do whenever you can. I truly feel like my creativity really grows when I just play. We're going to be using 2 of the Sway machine quilting rulers and a bit of free motion quilting and just going for it. To stitch out this design, I'm going to start with my Sway 3 machine quilting ruler. The strip that I'm quilting in is a 2-inch strip. Starting on the left side of my quilt, because I like to quilt across my quilts from left to right, I'm going to hold the Sway 3 machine quilting ruler so the marked line on the circular end lies right on top of my seam. From there, I'll stitch across, working my way from left to right, stitching half circles all the way across. Once I get all the way over to the right side of my quilt, because I didn't measure out this strip, I will have a partial curve, but I'm okay with that. I'll stitch that partial curve to the end. Whenever you're machine quilting with machine quilting rulers, one rule that I like to always remind everybody, remember gentle pressure. It's easy to want to push really hard on your ruler or really hard on your machine. But if you can remember gentle pressure with the ruler and gentle pressure with your machine, overall you're going to end up with better results. Once I've stitched all the way across my quilt to the right side, now I'm going to switch rulers and I'm going to use the largest curve, that circle end, on my Sway 5 machine quilting ruler, and I'm going to stitch using the points that I've created with my Sway 3 machine quilting ruler, point to point curves working back to the left side of my quilt. Now you'll notice, to add a little bit of extra detail, in between each of those curves as I stitch them out, I'll stop, pull my ruler away, and stitch a teardrop shape, creating that fun little melon and filling in that open space. I love how that design turned out. It's a great one to try on any border or sashing. But let's move on and stitch out another fun design. For this next design, I am also not going to be doing any marking. I am using the markings on my machine quilting rulers. So here I'm using the mini 4-in-1 machine quilting ruler. Through the center of the machine quilting ruler, there are some angled lines that are marked on the ruler. Those are 45-degree angles. As I'm quilting here, you'll notice how I'm moving my mini 4-in-1 machine quilting ruler and lining it up and stitching these straight lines. So on the ruler, I'm lining up that 45-degree angle with the ditch, with my seam, across that bottom edge of the strip, alternating my ruler to create those beautiful lines as I work my way all the way across. Again, because I do all of my quilting on a long arm quilting machine, I like to work across my quilts from left to right. With designs like this, the melon, and also these straight lines, I want crisp points. As I'm stitching, you'll notice that when I get to my point, I stop and let my machine take a couple of stitches in that point to ensure that I create a nice point. Sometimes when I'm quilting those lines, I'll even stop my machine with my needle in the down position as I adjust my ruler and continue stitching. Once I've quilted all the way across, creating that zigzag line, now I'm going to switch and use my Sway 4 machine quilting ruler to stitch point-to-point curves across that zigzag. So here I'm working now from right back to left, stitching those point-to-point curves. Always remember when working with machine quilting rulers that you want to hold your ruler 1/4 of an inch away from where you want your thread to intersect. If you need to go through and mark out your lines before you do, you can totally do that. There is nothing wrong with extra marking. For me, I was just seeing all the things I could achieve on this quilt with as little marking as I could get away with. So once I've stitched all the way back to the left side with those curves, now I'm going to stitch curves going back to the right side. This time I'm using that concave curve to stitch that nice circle, working my way back across this design. I love how this melon design turned out. It's another fabulous design that really could be done with the Sway 4 like I'm using here, or the Sway 3, or the Sway 5, just depending on the size of border you're working with, or strip. Again, here I'm working with a 2-inch strip. The next design that we're going to be stitching will be going back to the Sway 3 machine quilting ruler and stitching these crossover curves. Now you'll notice here they're not perfect. My curves don't line up in the perfect spot. I would recommend with this design you'll probably want to go through and do a bit of marking. But when you're just getting used to using your rulers, like I said, just play around with them and practice and have fun and see what feels best for you. Similar to that first strip design that we quilted out, I will start on the left side of my quilt, stitching those point to point curved lines. So again, I'm using that center marked line on the circular end of the Sway 3 machine quilting ruler. I'll stitch my first curve, stop with my needle in the down position, adjust my ruler, and stitch my next curve, working all the way across this strip from left to right. Now you all know I love the look of stitch in the ditch. So once I've stitched those curves all the way over to the right side, I will use that straight side of my Sway 3 machine quilting ruler, and I'm going to stitch in the ditch all the way back to the left side. Now let's stitch that second set of curves. So like I did the first time, I'm going to line up that center marked line on the Sway 3 machine quilting ruler with the ditch, and then I'll stitch a curve, adjust my ruler, and stitch my next curve. Now you can see how that beautiful design really starts to come to life. This is one of those fun designs that you could always go through and add a fill to create more interest or texture, or leave it just like this. Sometimes less really is more. Now as I've worked my way through my quilt, now down to that very bottom border or strip. On this strip, I thought it would be fun to actually combine two of the strips and use my Sway 5 machine quilting ruler to stitch out this beautiful feather design. Notice here how I'm holding my Sway 5 machine quilting ruler. On the right end of my Sway 5 machine quilting ruler, you'll see how there's that little hook. As I hold my ruler here, I'm lining my ruler up so that flat end of my hook lies right on top of my ditch. Now, through the large circle end of the Sway 5 machine quilting ruler, there will be a marked line that is parallel on the ruler to that straight edge. I'll line those up with that seam through the center of this section. I'm going to stitch the two curves, so the concave and convex curves. Once I've stitched that second curve, then I'll stop with my needle in the down position, readjust my ruler, and then continue stitching the next two curves, working my way all the way across this sashing strip. Once I've stitched all the way across, now it's time to play. I love machine quilting feathers. So in these strips, I am going to just be really playful and stitch some bump back feathers, some playful feathers, even adding in some leaves and some swirls. With a feather like this, there are no rules, just whatever feels good in that moment and whatever fills in the space. Personally, these types of feathers are some of my very favorite because they are so liberating and create such beautiful results. Now, as I'm stitching, I do know that this bottom edge obviously is going to go into my binding. So sometimes I'll stitch feathers across there and sometimes I'll just kind of do like a little stitch. I'll repeat this process, filling in both the top and bottom side of this feather as I go. Often in my machine quilting, you'll see me quilt just one side of my feather and then come back and do the second side. But because my spine here fills in basically from top to bottom of this 4-inch section, I am going to just work back and forth, filling in each of the sections with those feathers. I love how this quilt turned out, and I had so much fun machine quilting it. You can find more of my process in the Piece and Quilt Academy. You can find all the details about our new sway rulers as well, www.pieceandquilt.com. Have a great day, everybody.